Hey everyone, welcome to episode 3 of Maker's Mic, a music makers podcast presented by LR Bags. Our guest this episode is our longtime friend, Bob Minner. Bob has been playing guitar since he was 5 years old, so needless to say, he's gotten pretty good. Specializing in flat picking, Bob has won numerous contests throughout his life, and in 2011, he released his first solo guitar album titled There and Back Again. But Bob's main gig is playing acoustic guitar for Tim Mcgraw and Faith Hill. I was lucky enough to catch up with Bob recently. He was on a quick break from Tim and Faith's Soul to Soul tour, which runs until the end of October. So listen up as we discuss what it's like to play with country music's most powerful couple. All right. So, I wanted to start off. I wanted to tell you the story.
Okay.
This is my 6 degrees of separation from Tim Mcgraw.
Okay. I'll play the game.
All right.
Sure.
So back in 2003, a really good friend of mine named Mark Crozier worked on Tim's farm out in Leapers Fork.
Okay.
And Tim had a German short-haired pointer, and I guess the farm manager or Tim's assistant had a golden retriever, and they tried to keep them separated,
And they couldn't do that.
but they couldn't do it.
Right.
She went into heat. One night they snuck off,
Right.
and a couple months later, 12 little black puppies came out.
Right.
So my buddy Mark that worked at the farm, he really took a liking to the slowest and the fattest of the pups and called him Chubbs.
Okay.
And I guess eventually Tim just said, hey, Mark, you should take Chubbs, or Mark
Right.
just decided I'm going to take him. And my buddy adopted Chubbs, and then Mark ended up moving to Africa, and so he gave Chubbs to my good friends David and Floor. But he's still alive. He's 14 years old now, and it's the son of Tim McGraw's dog.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And that's my relationship to Tim McGraw.
Wow. That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's a pretty crazy story.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's awesome. What a great story.
Yeah, it's a sweet dog, too. All right, man, let's jump into this.
All right, let's go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Here we go.
You saw Doc Watson in concert.
I did.
I'm so jealous.
Well, I did.
I mean, I know you were like 8 or something,
or maybe
12.
I was a little younger. Yeah.
Who knows? So maybe you don't remember it too
Right.
well, but that's so cool. I
Yeah.
love Doc Watson.
Well, I mean, that was just the environment that I grew up in. My dad had started playing old-time clawhammer banjo. And so our house was old-time clawhammer banjo, old-time string bands, like Fuzzy Mountain String Band, Tony and Irene Sailtan, all this quasi-late 60s folk thing, And my mom and dad were not like, they weren't like 60s hippies,
Yeah.
But that was just the thing. And my dad took me to go see Doc Watson when I want to say I was either 5 or 6 at Linden Hall in St. Louis University. And I can't remember if it was because my dad had already had a Doc Watson record, or
Yeah.
I mean, I can't remember what caused him to go see it. But anyway.
I was going to ask you, were you familiar?
Oh, no, I mean, I was 5,
Yeah.
I mean, I had all this music, but I was too young to like nail down, oh, this is who this is,
Right.
and this is. I remember seeing the concert. I mean, I remember it, but I don't remember it, because you know how you just things are kind of fuzzy. And what's really weird is, as much of an influence as he was, like later on with my guitar playing, him and Norman Blake, I never met him, I never saw him after that because it was just, for whatever reason.
Timing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, have you always wanted to play music? Did you know from an early age that's what you were going to do?
No.
Okay.
Not really. I mean,
did it start as a hobby or?
I think it just started as something that has always been there. You know,
So it was in your family, and
well, yeah, and like I said, my dad wasn't like ever like an accomplished banjo player. I remember being 10 years old when we moved to a town called DeSoto, Missouri, which is really where a lot. I mean, if I had to nail down when the music thing became like a regular thing, that would be it. When we moved to DeSoto, which is just like a little train town about 50 miles south of St. Louis, in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
And our next door neighbor was this lady, and her father owned Smitty's Tile and Decorating, otherwise kind of known as the local pre-Home Depot kind of thing,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so KHAD radio, AM, it was an AM station. It was a little cinder block building. It's long since burnt down. And they lost all their record collection, by the way, which was to die for, But she asked my mom and asked me, she says, we need some local entertainment for the grand opening of Smitty's. Would your son, me, would you be interested in like maybe playing a few banjo tunes? And I'm like, oh, okay. And so I remember having my banjo, and the local AM radio guy, probably dressed, he had, the big sideburns and the big microphone, and, probably, the Hager slacks, holding the microphone down while I played, And
this seems pretty big time for a kid.
When you're 10 years old and have never done that.
And you're going to be on the radio and playing in front of people.
Yeah, And so I did that. And unlike this interview where I'm talking a lot, my mom still has the Memorex cassette of it. And I was just like, yeah, no. It was like, first radio thing. But that got the attention of a guy in Festus, Missouri, which is the town right over, who had a Bluegrass Gospel band, and his name he went by Fiddlin' Willie Key and the Ozark Gospel Singers. He got a hold of my mom and dad, who I guess were in the phone book,
Right.
And from that point, I started going out with this Bluegrass Gospel band on weekends at 10 years old.
Yeah.
Were
you playing banjo?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And
did you know how to play other instruments at the time, or?
I was getting into guitar and banjo, and there was other stuff that was going to soon follow. Fiddle and man and all that stuff. But it was guitar and banjo. But I remember going to his house, and his wife smoked like a steam engine, and she ran the 1/2-inch tape machine, which was a Fostex.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And we would record, like on Wednesday nights, we would record like this half-hour gospel show for like whatever local radio stations.
Wow. Like one microphone in the room, just kind of all.
Oh, totally. And it was like, the best way I can describe it is like, if you ever watch movies like Sling Blade or Robert Duvall and the Apostle,
yeah,
that quirky little small American town thing, that's how I grew up,
Okay.
So when I watch those movies, I'm like, well, I know those people, because I grew up around them, and Fiddlin' Willie was one of those guys. He had this old Bluebird school bus, it had the mechanical arm that opened the door, and he had all this furniture. He had gutted it and had like bolted down and drywall screwed all this furniture down.
Yeah, because that's what you did back in the day.
That's what you did back then,
You'd take a school bus, empty it out, and then...
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I remember doing my first time on a bus was going to do a benefit in Kansas City. And I specifically remember sitting down like on the stairs trying to cheat death from falling out the door, you know. But watching the highway go by and at 10 years old at night, and it's like, well, this is pretty fun. The funny part is, I thought that that's what these guys did for a living.
Right.
I didn't know that they had other jobs, like one was an accountant and Phil and Willie was a plumber. And
Yeah.
I just thought, like, this is what they do.
Yeah. But that was just their side gig, huh?
Yeah, something they did for fun. But
Yeah.
I thought you were supposed to do that for a living.
So there's some bus seats at the Station Inn. I'm sure you've been to the Station Inn a couple of times, right?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
There's some bus seats along the back corner.
Flat and Scruggs.
Came from the Flat and Scruggs bus. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's the same thing. They tore them out so that they could build out their bus. And,
yeah, that's all they had back then, you know.
Yeah. Those were tour buses back then.
Yeah, that was the way you traveled. And, you know, looking back, late 70s, early 80s was just like a hotbed time for bluegrass festivals in Missouri. And there was one every weekend, or if it wasn't on the weekend, during the summertime, I was you know, going to jam sessions at people's houses, and old women were cooking all the food, and the guys were jamming, and there was smelling like wood smoke, and there was linoleum on the floor, and guitar and fiddle and banjo cases everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was making money. And so, like, I'm coming back to school on a Monday with, like, you know, 150 or 200 bucks in my pocket from playing. And,
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. No, I mean, and as I say, I just never, at 51 now, I just do not regret growing up like that.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's so cool.
Yeah. Because it's a slice of America that I'm sure in some ways still exists.
I was so our last podcast guest in the previous episode was Charlie Worsham.
Mm-hmm.
And
we just had him out as an
opener. You guys
opener.
were just out on the road with him.
Oh yeah, man.
Right? He said there was never a turning point where he knew that he was going to do music.
Right.
It was just he said it was more like there was just no other option ever for him. He just started playing music, and just his parents never said no, so he just kept doing it.
Right. When you kind of know that your skill level is formidable compared to what's around.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
You kind of go, well, this is what I want to do, you know, and I didn't plan on that. But, you know, I had broken up with this serious girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And I had moved to Fenton, Missouri with my grandmother. You know, my grandpa had passed, so it was just me and grandma. She was real hip. I mean, she was awesome, you know. I had, for a number of years, I had befriended this older fiddle player named Doug Drury, who really kind of took me under his wing, got me into playing fiddle. We would meet at the DeSoto Cafe on Wednesday nights when I was, 14, 15, 16 years old. Little Main Street Cafe, and musicians would come in, and we'd just set up in the front of the cafe, and people would eat coffee and pie and pot roast dinners, and that's what you did on Wednesday nights in DeSoto, Missouri.
Yeah. And
he took me under his wing and got me into fiddle. Well, anyway, after this, relationship trauma, he goes, "Sport, why don't you call my niece? She's a singer." So gives me her number, and I call her, and we agree to meet. And she is playing this talent show at the Washington County Fair in Potosi, Missouri. And she goes, "Well, if you want to see me, come down." So I go, "How will I know how will I know?" She goes, "You'll find me. I have the guitar case." So I get down there, and I find her, and she does her thing, and she wins first place, and she wins $50. And since it's a cash prize, it's 2 20s and a 10. And she has this nephew and her little sister. and she gives each of them a 20 and she keeps the 10. And I'm like, okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Great heart.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's how that all started with Ginger. And then eventually we went on the road together, playing in a band called Awesome Possum. Wasn't that awesome? But we were out doing, country clubs and Holiday Inns and pulling a van and a trailer.
This is your wife.
This is my wife, yeah.
Yeah.
And traveled until we were 8.5 months pregnant with our first son, Zach, who's now 29.
Wow.
Who's now made us a grandfather with his wife and a grandmother with his wife. So now we got a grandbaby. So we settled back in Potosi and I start retreading airplane tires. Playing on the weekends. No thought at all of, I'm thinking this is my existence.
Yeah.
But during the time we had a band, we had a drummer named Randy Davis, whose father, incidentally, was Gene Davis, who was this, like, pre-Buck Owens, pre-Win Stewart, pre-Merle Haggard, West Coast honky-tonk guy.
Really?
Had a TV show, played the Palomino. Yeah.
Like Bakersfield Sound before
them all.
Before Bakersfield?
Gene Davis. Well, Randy quit us to go move to Nashville. And, no hard feelings, just something he wanted to do. So he goes to Nashville. And I'm retreading airplane tires. Ginger and I are playing in St. Louis on the weekends. Out of the blue, and we have Zach, he's a baby, a year old. Yeah. Out of the blue, Randy Davis calls me at my mother-in-law's house because Ginger and I were so poor we didn't have a phone. Mm-hmm. And we spent a lot of time at my mother-in-law's house. And he says, hey, Bobby, he says, there's a chance opening at Skull's Rainbow Room.
Oh, on Printer's Alley.
Yeah.
The original.
They
rebuilt it.
Yeah, but I remember the original.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I've done some research and some reading on that place.
When Skull Schulman would sit at the end of the bar in his hee-haw overalls and play the slot machine.
Yeah.
So he says it's like 6 nights a week, and they need an electric player, but they also need a fiddle player, banjo, like a utility guy. Why don't you come down and audition for it? And I'm like, dude, I'm retreading airplane tires. We got Zach.
Yeah, I got a home.
He says, well, man, look, just come down and audition, and you never know. Right. So my mom and dad watch Zach, and Ginger and I drive to Nashville. And Randy had said, just bring pillows and blankets and you guys can sleep on the floor. No reason to rent a hotel room. Just stay with me and my roommate.
Yeah.
That's cool, So we get down here, and I can't really remember where the apartments were. Probably not in a very good area.
Yeah.
But we knock on the door, and Randy says, hey, guys, come on in. He says, I want you to meet my roommate. This is Tim. And it is Tim Mcgraw, like 6 months in town, Tim Mcgraw.
Yeah.
And him and Randy had met down at the old Hall of Fame hotel, and they had become roommates. And Tim was trying to get something going. We went to Skulls. I auditioned. So I did not get the job there. But Tim got up and sang a few. Ginger got up and sang. And then we went back to the apartment, and him and Ginger hit it off and sang. And so, traveling back to Missouri, Ginger and me get to talk. She goes, if he ever makes it, if he ever gets a deal, he'll be huge because he just has it. And I'm like, well, okay, but I got to get back to work it's off my radar.
Yeah. And
then Tim just keeps calling me, wanting me to go on the road and do clubs and stuff, I just can't do it. And my wife had started to get some interest from some people. also in Nashville. So
it's pulling you both.
it's pulling us both, yeah. And so one day I come home from the tire factory, go to my mother-in-law's house because she has cable. When CMT actually played country music videos,
Yeah.
And I turn it on. And again, this is like a year and a half or so since we'd been to Nashville, And Tim has his first video, Welcome to the Club. And I'm like, man, the dude's got a video now. He's got a label deal.
Right. He must be doing okay.
I'm going to call him. I'd love to work with you now, He says, I don't need an electric player now. I need an acoustic fiddle guy, and that's what I need, acoustic and fiddle. All right. He says, but you got to move. All right. So Ginger and I, dude, we just moved. I mean,
Was it a tough choice at all, or was it just like...
It was tough. Here's what was tough. What made it easier is being too young and stupid to know not to, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And also your son's only 3 years old, so not in school, not a lot of friends, not hard,
nothing.
Probably not a hard move for him.
But hard in the sense of we don't know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
We had a trunk full of groceries that everybody had given us, and we had 2 weeks rent paid and less than $100. And then that's how it started with Tim. And it was awful, couldn't afford anything. Tim was trying to make it. He never had no money to begin with either. And leaving my wife and son to fend for themselves in the days before cell phones, when the only way to contact somebody was like I remember going, to a truck stop and getting a prepaid card and going to the payphone.
Yeah.
When the bus stops to fuel.
Yeah. And if they're not there,
if they're not there,
the phone, then
or something. So pretty, and my wife is just so amazingly just resourceful and tough, and so that's how the whole McGraw thing started. And now this is my 25th year with him, and I'm sitting across from you.
Yeah.
Talking about all this ancient history.
How long of a transition was it from the time that he was hungry and wanted to be something to the time that he is what he is, like a superstar?
I think.
Do you feel like it was a slow rise looking back on it?
No, definitely not.
Really?
I mean, I think with Tim, there's just people in this world that cannot do anything else except just be great at what they do and iconic. And Steve Jobs is that guy. McGraw is that thing in country music. Ginger was right. He had that it. And it didn't matter if it was in a bar with 30 people or a stadium with 30,000. There's just this innate quality that some people have that just makes them, and what's great is they don't know they have it.
Yeah. It's like a magnetism that
it slips the conscience, and I mean, he's developed his showmanship because we've just done it for so long.
Yeah.
But everything that he does like that has just become such a natural thing. And I think, he's just got that song sense too. Hey, I mean, I'm a songwriter too, and I've got, a good handful of bluegrass cuts and Americana stuff. But I haven't pitched anything to Tim McGraw ever because it's not good enough yet. He says the song wins. And so to me, that's what I want him to say. The songs come first. And I think that was reflective of when he picked, when he cut Indian Outlaw and Don't Take the Girl, which were like the first two really big ones. And at that time, you know, he had one record out on Curb. It had Welcome to the Club and some other stuff. We were already doing Indian Outlaw in the clubs, you know.
Yeah.
It was on a cassette that I had to learn, you know. And so, and we knew the crowd response, and it was huge, and it was great. But, you know, Curb was like, no, it's too controversial, I can't record. And Tim's like, I think the essence of it was, let me do this.
Yeah.
So he cut Indian Outlaw, and it was huge. You know, controversy and all. It was huge. And then he followed that up with Don't Take the Girl. And so he's just always had that thing to know how to pick the right songs for the right time. And I don't know, man. I mean, this sounds kind of, I'm not saying this from a jaded point of view. I'm just saying it from an honest point of view. That
sure,
it's not always about singing. I want to come to town to be a singer. Well, okay, but I think our industry is more than that. You have to bring it as a singer, but I think there's so much more with entertaining now. I think the expectancy of the audience now is more than it was, you know, 15, 20, 30 years ago. I think people expect something more, and it's always the ones that have that extra thing. You know, there's great singers.
Yeah.
Great. Be a great singer. But then there's others that just have that extra. And those are the ones that just kind of tend to rise up and hang around for a long time.
I think another thing too is that it's that people might not realize, you know, and I don't know, I'm not in the music business. Well, I'm in the music business, but
I hear you.
I'm not a musician.
Sure.
But it's work.
Yeah, it is.
You know, so we recently did some pickups for Brad Paisley and sort of did some customization, and I took him over to his rehearsal studio, the big Moo TV complex,
right?
And dropped the guitars off, and I came in and right in the middle of rehearsals, and Brad was just like running the show, you know. I mean, not to say that, you know, I don't want to paint a bad picture, like, but he's a hard ass, and like he was making sure that all of his guys were on top of their game, not missing a beat, and really just working it, you know. Is Tim like that at all?
Look, one thing, you know, he doesn't pay me or anybody else or firm to suck.
Yeah.
You know, there isn't. You can have a natural aptitude for things. You can have a natural gifting for music, and in my case, you know, you can be a good guitar player. But man, there's so much more than just playing guitar. You know,
you got to show up.
You got to be present to win.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like when fans pay their hard-earned money to come see a show, like the Soul to Soul tour with Tim and Faith that we're on right now.
Yeah.
It's a 2-hour show. Runs seamlessly. It's great. You know, all this integration of the music and the video and all, you know, lasers and all this other stuff. I mean, it's a really great show.
Uh-huh.
It feels like it's flowing to them, but nobody knows the 2 and 3 months of rehearsal prior to that, every day, putting it together, making it right. And there's quite a bit of time before Tim and Faith ever show up for the rehearsal.
Sure.
I mean, they're always working with us.
Yeah.
But it's like we're putting a show together, they're approving it, and then after we get our act together, you know, then we'll run it with them And then another whole section of rehearsals with them start, So yeah, you bust your tail. It's the one thing that I think Tim excels in is that guy is dedicated. That guy is disciplined. That guy shows up and brings it first. And you either bring it and follow and be part of the herd, or you don't. And he's big on his health and working out and staying in shape. And that's consistency, man.
Yeah.
And that carries in. And I think if you're going to work for him in faith, that's part of the qualities that you have to have also. Consistency. Mm-hmm. I got the guitars on the road that I play and everything. Yeah, but I'm always carrying a guitar in the hotel room too. I will lug a Carlton case through an airport to have a guitar in the room. Why? Well, because I'm a guitar player.
Yeah.
I want to have a guitar to play, and because I take I love what I do, but I also take it serious in that I can do two things. I can be slack and not put time into developing my craft, because there's no secret, as you get older, if you don't stay on top of your skill levels in game as a musician or anything, mm-hmm. it's going to drop down. Yeah. When do professional baseball players? How long is their career?
Right.
So it's same way here. I have to keep my skill level up, but I also enjoy playing.
Yeah.
But I want to be able to bring it for the bosses. Mm-hmm. So it's discipline.
Yeah, and for the people, right?
And for the people, man. They just look, when people pay for a show, they deserve the best from all of us. Yeah. And at the end of the day, man, I get to play guitar for a living. It's like they pay me to eat ice cream. But there's days I have to make the ice cream before I eat it. And that's okay too,
Yeah. That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you about was I bet you've had the opportunity to meet a lot of heroes or maybe not heroes, but people that have influenced you musically. Is that the case?
There's some influences that I have, but a lot of them I haven't met. However, some of my favorite guitar players today, man, like Kenny Smith, Kenny and Amanda Smith, monster flat picker. I've gotten a chance to know Kenny a little bit and visit with him and pick a little, and I think he's fabulous, and I learn a lot from him. Probably my favorite guitar player right now is a jazz guy named Julian Lage, who plays a lot of stuff with Critter, Chris Eldridge from the Punch Brothers. And Julian and Chris have these records out, they're all acoustic, guitar duets. Mm-hmm. And Julian, my favorite record that has been on my constant play for a long time is Julian's World's Fair album. Just absolutely amazing. Never met him. And again, never met him yet, But it's like for all the older folks that I haven't met, and maybe some of them have passed on or I may never meet them, man, I'm inspired by the younger people coming up now, Yeah. We had Rhiannon Giddens out with us opening for 3 shows last week.
Oh, yeah.
I've been a fan since the Chocolate Drops.
Yeah.
So
her drummer is my neighbor.
Get out.
Yeah, Jamie.
Yeah.
He lives right behind me.
Yeah. So there's...
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah. So there's a lot of current ones that I'm looking forward to meeting, because I may not ever meet Norman, some of these others.
Have you heard of William Tyler? Does that name ring a bell?
I hate to say no. Maybe though. William Tyler.
Yeah, you should look him up.
Okay. Okay.
He's an old friend of mine.
Really?
And I don't. He sort of reminds me of John Fahey.
Okay.
That's,
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see,
Really,
Fahey goes back.
It's all acoustic or mostly acoustic. I think he plays some electric, but a lot of just picking.
I will certainly look him up.
Yeah,
I think
he's phenomenal.
There's plenty of. That's the thing that's exciting now, to me, is that there are so many monster younger musicians out there that are taking things in directions that nobody thought of, and I hope younger guitar players discover guys like Doc Watson, Norman Blake, or whoever else. I mean, I hope they absorb that.
I mean, I feel like it's easier these days to discover older.
Yeah, because back in my day, you had to search it out.
Yeah, you had to dig through crates of.
You had to buy the records.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there was the whole.
But nowadays, everything's just linked and connected, and you search for a guitar player on YouTube, and over on the right hand side, a Doc Watson video could pop up.
If you like this, you'll like this.
Yeah. With Spotify,
I'm really optimistic. About music in general. I mean, everybody focuses in on sales, and I understand that's important, and all the streaming issues and songwriters not getting paid. I mean, I get all it because to a degree with my stuff. I mean, I'm in the middle of that too. But but if we're just going to talk about music and people making music, man, there is so much great music out there. The music business may be in jeopardy as a business model, but let's leave that to everybody else to figure out. Music is healthy and strong, and it's moving forward, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
How can I not be?
What would you say is your favorite part about your job?
Depends on how esoteric you want to get with it. If we break it down to the economics of it,
let's not do that.
Well, I mean, in a pleasant way. In a pleasant way.
Okay, economically.
I have been able to put a roof over our heads and make a living for my family. Mm-hmm. And I get to do that because I get to play guitar for a living.
Yeah.
When I come home and my wife picks me up and I get home to my log cabin and my dogs are there, and I get to sit on my front porch with coffee in the morning, and I get to hang with Ginger. And then my son and both my boys are there, and my daughter-in-law comes over with my other son and brings the grandbaby over, and I hear guitar case latches opening up because Zach wants to play a little. That's why I do it. And if I had any wisdom at all to impart, I would say, if you're married, realize that every day that you are away from your spouse, living your dream, that is one day and one night that you will never regain with them. I would not have said this years ago, but as a 51-year-old man, I can look back and go, man, I've spent a lot of nights away and a lot of days away from my family. And I made that choice. I would tell the young guys, your job's awesome. Love that you do this for a living. Be thankful that you get to do it. But man, just take care of the stuff at home. Mm-hmm. Because after the job is over and after the fans are gone, maybe after your artist you work for doesn't have a deal anymore, and opens up a car dealership in their hometown, that family is all you're really going to have. The other side of the coin, I have a friend and a boss that has been gracious enough and seen a value in what it is that I do. And years down the line, when he goes in the Country Music Hall of Fame and we're all old, I'll be able to go, I took the ride with that guy. And I was there almost from the very beginning. And thank you for letting me do this with you and being kind and generous to my family to give us a living and an opportunity that, man, we just wouldn't have had.
Yeah.
I mean, look, like, I mean, how many guys do you know in town? Everybody has multiple gigs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Man, I've been doing the same gig with the same guy for 25 years. That's unheard of.
Yeah.
So my hat's off to Tim, and Faith, because I play for her too now,
That's cool. So let's talk about this Collings. Great guitar company.
Love them to death.
Yeah.
And man, with the passing of Bill Collings last week, that has been quite a shock to the guitar community, obviously. Steve McCreary, the general manager in the driver's seat now, who has been like a brother. Him and Bill were like brothers, and Steve has been with him forever. So, I think he's going to do great, and I'm looking forward to see what they do now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I've spoken to Steve a couple of times through email.
Yeah. And, losing a friend like that and losing the founder of a company like that had such a focus, it's a different thing,
Yeah.
But again, I think the same things apply to Bill Collings and the Collings guys. It's like he brought the game every day, and he hired people that do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's going to be exciting to see what they're going to do now, what they're going to develop, the new stuff that they're going to come out with. Yeah. But yeah, I love them. Love the guitars, love the people.
What is this one?
This one I brought with me is a D1A traditional, and it's a dreadnought.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they make the great Collins standard guitars. I'm playing two of them out on the road. I got a Madagascar Rosewood OM, and then I've got a Collins CJ slope shoulder that I play out there, and a Waterloo. Of course, all with bags pickups, of course. But the traditional series stems off of Bill's passion for going, well, why is it that guitar players like older guitars, and what makes that work? Some guys go, well, we're going to we're going to torify the top, we're going to bake the top, and we're going to do that, and that's going to be that. I don't think that was Bill's approach at all. I think Bill's approach was, let's talk to guitar players, and why do guys like older guitars? When you pick up a 70-year-old guitar, what is it about that makes it tick? What are those elements, and how do you do that in a new guitar? The old Martins, like I have a 41 D18, and when you play that guitar, it makes you kind of work for it.
Yeah.
Because that's like, okay, bring your game. So the T series, I think, kind of bridges that gap. The neck profile on this is from a 39 D18, so it has that feel. In many ways, I like it better than I do my 41 D18, which some guys would go, well, that's sacrilege.
Yeah.
And the truth is, not all the old guitars are great guitars.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Just because you go buy a vintage guitar doesn't mean it's the best guitar.
Exactly. So I think the T series guitars and the cases, those were Bill's two really big projects that he worked on before he passed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
They're great guitars. But yeah, this is the one I fly with this is my hotel room guitar when I want something to play in the hotel room or I'm working on some new stuff.
Yeah.
This is the one I take out with me.
Let's set up and hear a little bit of it. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's fine, man. Let's do it.
Cool. You don't mind?
Oh man, whenever you're ready.
You gonna do a little flat picking? Or?
I'll do some for you. Yeah, I'll do an original thing.
Cool. All right. Let's talk our way into
yeah,
this.
Man, sure. All right.
What are you gonna play for us?
Haven't really got a working title.
I like that.
Yeah, it's like they just find their own titles down the line. And most of my stuff just comes around from screwing around in the hotel room and coming up with little pieces of things. This is kind of the result of it. This might be called something like because of the grandbaby. Grandbabies do something to you. It's like, so you got to have the ubiquitous grandbaby name song. So this might be Liam's Lullaby. I don't know. This is one I'm working on. Again, playing on my Collings D1A traditional. And for you guitar geeks, this is the one with the Adirondack top. You got to have that. And and I'm using Diodario nickel bronze 13 strings and a G7 Heritage capo. Oh, and a nasty,
what
perfect
kind of pick? Blue
chip SR50. So I got everybody that I love in on that.
All right.
Yeah. But they're all part of that sound too. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Liam's Lullaby.
I like it. We just came up with the name.
Yeah, we did. Whenever you're ready.
Ready? Yeah.
There you go.
Fantastic, man. That was so great. So wonderful. Bob, thanks so much, man.
Hey, thank you so much.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, that was awesome. That wraps it up for episode 3 of Maker's Mic. We'd like to thank our guest, Bob Minner, for sitting down with us today. Be sure to catch Bob sharing the stage with Tim and Faith if the Soul to Soul tour hits a city near you. And if you like what you heard here today, please be sure to subscribe and tell your friends and family about it. We'll catch you next time on Maker's Mic.